Have you ever had a friend who had a destructive relationship that when you're watching it, you're thinking, just break up with the person? That's exactly what Oakland has with the Raiders. And in the end, it destroyed the Oakland A's.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans, and welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about your Oakland A's all year long. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for quite a while now, and this is my sixth season here as a host on the Locked On Podcast Network. But this is my first season doing double duty as the host of Locked On MLB and the host of Locked On A's. Follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter, whatever it's called now, or on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball. Wait, where'd my lower third go? There it is. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, I've done a couple of episodes where I've broken down how we got to this point. And some of the stuff I talked about were some of the things that went wrong just as the A's were at the peak of their powers in the late 80s, early 90s. Things never got better for the A's than then. The attendance was through the roof. They were winning pennants left and right. They won another title. They had superstars. They were signing their superstars. The Haas family was making sure the A's were the baseball team of the Bay Area and one of the marquee franchises in baseball. And then before you can say Dennis Eckersley fields the ball from Tony Phillips, everything's gone. And almost like that, they went from what seemed to be the model organization to we got to get the heck out of here. And I'm going to talk a little bit in a future episode. I talked about this on Locked On MLB about how the fall of the multi-purpose stadiums has led teams staying in their market for much, much longer than they would have in any other circumstance, certainly any other sport. But what that also means is that there have been three instances that I've seen in my lifetime, the Expos, the Rays, and the A's, where the uncertainty of a stadium has led to, well, some pretty disastrous results. But that's a future podcast. I hinted at the beginning, at my little tease at the top, that sometimes you can have an infatuation with someone or a dysfunctional relationship with someone, whether it's romantic or familial or work-wise or whatever, that from the outside, it's clear. It's the proverbial, they're just not that into you, or they're bad for you. You got to get out of that relationship, or they're treating you badly. Why are you letting them do that? We've all known people like that. I've been that person who has been in something you should be out of. And you know what? To be fair, I've also been the guy that some other people have told someone, you got to get out of your relationship with that guy. It giveth and it taketh away. City of Oakland has had that with the Raiders. And that infatuation with the Raiders and the ability to say, we'll do whatever you need for us to do, Raiders. And the love for the Raiders, probably more than any other team that has played in the Oakland Coliseum, complex there, has led to, well, a lot of bad things to happen to the A's. Led to one very good thing to happen to the A's, and then a lot of other bad things. And I got to sort of break this down. Yes, this is going to be a let's examine the past, but you have to examine the past. You can't understand the present without understanding the series, the chain reaction of events that brought us here. It wasn't one thing. It was a bunch of little things, but the infatuation with the Raiders in so many ways has led to where we are right now with the A's. Now, to be fair to the Raiders, they were the first ones. They were the ones who entered the Oakland Coliseum arena, area there. The arena was built there, but the Warriors were already playing in San Francisco at the time. The Raiders put Oakland on the map with the AFL. The AFL was the rival football league to the NFL. They were across the bay from the 49ers. They stuck their flag in the ground as a sort of, we're the other team in the Renegade League and we're the rebellious squad. And the Raiders came in and immediately had some success. Played in the second Super Bowl and became the team that essentially the Oakland Coliseum was built for. It was built as a multi-purpose stadium, which when you think about it, makes sense to build multi-purpose stadiums. You have one stadium that when the football team is there, great, and when it's only football, let's play baseball in there. And then have concerts and truck pulls and everything like that. That all can take place in one big place instead of here's our football stadium that's empty while baseball is being played and vice versa. Well, it was a multi-purpose park that had images of drawing a baseball team there. And Charlie Finley, playing the owner of the Kansas City A's, who were offering the A's to any city in creation, had images of making Bay Area money and came to Oakland. In retrospect, if he had stayed in Kansas City, he would have had what became Kauffman Stadium, and probably the A's would never have moved to KC. We're not having this conversation, but they did. So the A's and the Raiders shared the Oakland Coliseum. Some people nicknamed the Oakland Mausoleum because they had trouble drawing even when the A's were winning the World Series. But the infatuation seemed to be towards the Raiders in so many ways, even though there was a tremendous overlap between Raiders and A's fans. And, of course, Al Davis was the owner of the Raiders. My God, you had Al Davis and Charlie Finley as owners of the team in the same arena. That must have been interesting. I don't know enough about football history to know the ins and outs of football and the moving of teams and franchises. I don't. I know baseball. That's my sport. But Al Davis is big enough that even I've heard of him. And, of course, he wanted all sorts of great new rich things, and he saw football teams were starting to get more money and more luxury boxes and everything like that in the late 70s, early 80s, and he lusted to move out of town, specifically to LA. And around the same time, Charlie Finley, who saw that despite winning 3 straight World Series, had trouble drawing 1 million fans to Oakland, was ready to move his team again. And he had a multi-purpose stadium in Denver just sitting there, salivating for a team to go there. And besides, Finley was in financial trouble. He was starting to lose money. He was going through a pretty nasty divorce. And so he wanted, in 1978, he was going to sell the A's to Davis, not Al Davis, Marvin Davis, who was a businessman in Denver. At the same time, Al Davis was getting ready to pack up shop and head to LA and play in the LA Coliseum until Los Angeles would build him a stadium. Well, the Raiders up and left. And seeing that the A's and Raiders were about to leave at the same time, the city council of Oakland set up a situation where they were demanding that the A's uphold the remaining 10 years on the Coliseum lease. If the Denver deal had gone through, there would have been money paid to Oakland to offset some of the cost of the lease, and the San Francisco Giants would play a handful of games every year at the Coliseum. But if they were going to lose both the Raiders and the A's, it would have been a disaster for everybody. So the city of Oakland said, you cannot break this lease. And Marvin Davis in Denver said, well, forget this, and dropped the sale. And the Haas family came in and bought the A's and kept them in Oakland. And pretty soon, after the Billy Martin years ended, there was a couple rocky years, not Colorado rocky years, but a couple rocky years, and suddenly the A's became the marquee franchise. So they stayed in Oakland because the Raiders left. And the city of Oakland couldn't imagine losing 2 sports teams at the same time. However, things got ugly as the A's became the model franchise. Instead of fawning over the team that stayed and trying to make their life great, they pined for the team that left, and it wound up becoming a disaster. Are you struggling to close deals? Business to business selling is tougher than ever. That's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon to get started. And now let's hear a little bit from our friends over at FanDuel, because I'm telling you, this is the best time of the year to be a sports fan. You got the Stanley Cup Finals going on, Edmonton, Florida. You got the NBA playoffs going on, Boston versus Dallas, and baseball's on every day. And you can win and bet it all on FanDuel right now. New customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on anything from Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park or get that slap shot in there. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, it's America's #1 sportsbook. Hey, where is your hub of sports news, sports takes, and everything else? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you to bring you the biggest sports stories. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. So, we all know, under the House family, the Oakland Coliseum became the place to go. They were drawing in the top 5 in attendance in the American League. They had some of the biggest stars in baseball: Canseco, McGuire, Ricky Henderson, Dave Stewart. They were Cy Young Award winners, MVPs, Rookies of the Year. Tony La Russa was the smartest man in baseball. Just ask him, he'll tell you. They were the model organization, bringing up people through the farm system, making razor-sharp trades and shrewd free agent signings. Yeah, back then, they actually signed some free agents. They brought in veterans who saw their careers blossom again, like Dave Parker, like Rick Honeycutt, like, of course, Dennis Eckersley, and Bob Welch, who went on to have some of his best years of what was a wonderful and in some ways underrated career. And they were regulars in the postseason. I was living in the Bay Area when all that was happening, and there seemed to be a constant lusting for the Raiders as the Raiders became a marquee team in Los Angeles, winning a Super Bowl. But you would think that some of the people would get over that, because over in San Francisco, they had the 49ers with Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Ronnie Lott, Roger Craig. Can't you find the silver lining of that? Instead, there was all of this lusting after the Raiders once again. And there was talk, are the Raiders going to move back? Are the Raiders going to move back? And from right around what they moved to LA and after they won the Super Bowl when they beat the Eagles, and then 2 years later they're in LA, they win another Super Bowl and then Bo Jackson is there, and suddenly the Raiders are cool again, and they're playing in the LA Memorial Coliseum, which I don't know, it's pretty old. And in 1995, just right around the time that the A's were on a downturn, their stars were becoming aging stars, La Russa was about to leave, and it was the summer after the strike, so attendance was down all over baseball. the Raiders returned. And the city of Oakland basically Alameda agreed to build luxury suites and lots of them for Al Davis. And it became Mount Davis. So right there, boom, this giant, what looks like an aircraft carrier in center field. And immediately, one of the nice stadiums where they had made center field with the grass and the flowers and the hand-operated scoreboards and the view of the mountains of the East Bay and everything, and the memories of all the A's games you played there. Suddenly you had one of the ugliest monstrosities in baseball with these rows and rows of luxury boxes that were never filled and rows of seats that were way too high. I've watched a game in Mount Davis, an A's game. Those seats at the top there, you can't see anything. And I can't imagine they're good football seats. So essentially, the stadium was ruined to bring back the A's. Bring back the Raiders, my bad. The city had the team that stayed, the A's, who had the local ownership, who put money into the team, who gave them multiple championships, and hammer dancing to Too Legit to Quit, and Canseco, McGuire, Ricky Anderson, Eckersley, Dave Stewart, all of that. Of course, Mr. Haas died in 1995. I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't think Al Davis killed him. I don't think it's a coincidence that the resistance to have the A's come back happened right around the time the Haas family was unloading the team. But the lusting to bring back the team that left in the first place and ruin the stadium to bring back the team that skedaddled, instead of saying to the A's, what is it you need? What would make the stadium better for you? They ruined it for the team that left. And by the time the A's got good again in 2000 and fans started returning to the stadium, they go, what the hell is this? This place stinks. And it became a bad baseball stadium and an even worse football stadium. Because you'll notice over the years, the Raiders didn't exactly sell out. And all of a sudden, after destroying the stadium for the people who left, off the Raiders went to look around going like, well, I don't think this is going to work. Why don't we go find a new home? And Al Davis died in 2011, so any link that team had to the city of Oakland was done. And the Raiders are, well, what if we share Levi Stadium with the Niners? And the Niners said, yeah, well, what if we don't? What if we don't? And then it was kicked around. They go to Concord, or they got to play in the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. They tried to work something out with the A's. Then remember they were going to move back to LA. But then the Rams and the Chargers said, F you. And so off they went to Vegas, leaving the A's with this shell of a stadium. And when you stop and think about what could have happened and what could have been, the lusting of the Raiders had an absolute domino effect that eventually cost the city of Oakland all of their teams. Get supplies from the site that's made for skilled trades, SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading services from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros of the skilled trade can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free TradeMaster program. Every TradeMaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from the membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, electrical supplies from anywhere. Just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. Reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channel app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channel app. It's really a shame that the obsession seemed to be about the Raiders. The A's stayed because of the Raiders, but the stadium was destroyed because of the Raiders. You can't talk about what's wrong with the Oakland Coliseum without bringing up Mount Davis. You can't. And it's there. It looms like a shadow, like a monolith, like a star destroyer just flying over the stadium. It sits there. That, even if they pack the place, there are all those empty seats and all those empty luxury boxes. And the aesthetics of a stadium are important. It's the reason why people have moved away from multi-purpose stadiums. And I talked about this in a previous video, and I'm going to talk about it in a Locked On A's episode coming up, that we need to take away the stigma of Locked On A's, tell your friends. We need to take away the stigma of the multi-purpose stadium because, A, you could make a better multi-purpose stadium than they had in the 70s, and B, it makes sense, especially if you're going to use public money, to build one place instead of two. One sitting there empty while the other's being used and vice versa. That's crazy talk. But in baseball, the stadium matters more than it does in any other park because of the aesthetics of it. Whether or not the Patriots play in Gillette Stadium or Schaefer Stadium when they used to play there, or whether or not the Giants played in the old Giant Stadium or the new, whatever it's called now in the Meadowlands, in the end, it does. You're basically seeing a football field going back and forth. Same thing with basketball. Same thing with hockey. In baseball, the walls matter. The walls are different from stadium to stadium, and the view you get from panning around, that's a big part of the game, the big part of the experience of going to a game. It's what the Giants found out after playing in Candlestick, which, if you'll believe it, was even worse than the Oakland Coliseum. And they went from that to the glories of what is now called Oracle Park. Imagine if instead of all that money, and again, I can't make it any clearer, I'm 100% against public money for a private billionaire palace. I want a new stadium, and I don't want one dime of public money spent on it. But I also live in reality, and I know that that happens. And public money was partly spent on freaking Mount Davis. Public money was spent to destroy the Oakland Coliseum and essentially drive the A's and the Raiders out. We'll rebuild it for you, Raiders. Well, is this what you want? And the A's are like, hey, wait, what are you doing to our place? We still live here, but we want the Raiders. We miss them so much. Do you like it? The Raiders came in and said, nah, this stinks. Bye. They came back. They weren't there 10 years before they were looking for a new place. And the A's almost immediately like, yeah, what's going on here? If that public money was instead spent on upkeep of the Coliseum or build a baseball-only stadium in the parking lot, the A's would still be playing there, or build that downtown or whatever. I always felt they should have built in the parking lot. It's actually a great place for a baseball stadium. And there's a parking lot. Hell, there's a lot of room there to build a stadium. And they were cheaper to build back then, too. But no. Instead of saying, oh, the team that stayed, that just finished, it was 3 years since their last year. I mean, just 92. They're nearly back in the World Series. There was a strike. The players got old, and suddenly, no, we don't want you anymore. We want the team that left. And they left twice to Vegas. They left to L.A., and they left to Vegas. They would have left to L.A. again if the Chargers didn't move there. And they just fawned for the wrong team. And this Coliseum's destroyed since then. You can't sit in the Coliseum and not just look at Mount Davis and think, yikes. I've been watching a lot of the 70s A's for a writing project I'm doing. And the outfield they had, it was symmetrical. But they had all those banners across there. They had the great green up there and the landscaping. It was nice. I went to a lot of games there in the late 80s, early 90s when it was packed. It was nice. Now, you sit there and go, well, the fans are still great, and I'm still going to root for the A's. But it's rough. And it was all done because they lusted for the ones who left instead of the ones who stayed. The ones who abandoned the city as opposed to the team that stayed and put a winner on the field. And mind you, when the Raiders came back, they made one trip to the Super Bowl, but they weren't exactly a paragon of success. Now, the A's didn't win another pennant either since the building of Mount Davis, but at least they were regular participants in the playoffs. 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2006, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2018, 2019, 2020. A lot better than what the Raiders were doing, but it became the home of the Raiders. The Raiders saying, hey, we were here first. And the A's can say, yeah, but we were here longer. And now they're both going to be in Oakland, in Las Vegas. Or maybe not. I still don't believe it's going to happen. I don't think they're staying in Oakland, but I don't think they're going to Vegas. If you're in a dysfunctional relationship, get out, because it could be destructive for everybody. So follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.